Hey guys, this is Serivich, and I just wanted to talk to you for a bit about something that, I haven't really talked to anybody about, and that's because I can't talk to people face to face. I can't talk to people voice to voice, and that's really kind of the whole point of this video now, isn't it? I guess it's more of a vlog or whatever you want to call it. I don't normally do these kinds of videos, mostly because I got tired of bitching and complaining, but now I'm ready to bitch and complain again. And I felt like taking a break from Let's Plays in general, just to kind of get my mind into a different mindset and maybe put myself into a better mood for putting out more videos. So yeah, what I want to talk to you about today is anxiety. And hmm, well, let me start this by telling you a little story. I used to have a job at a place that produced various peanut butter and jelly goods, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, cookies, and so on and so forth. Actually, not so on and so forth. That's all we had. But uh, yeah, I started working at this place mostly because my mother worked there. And, well, she still works there, but she helped me get the job, and really, I think the whole reason they kept me around was because she also worked there, and I always had a way there, and I always had a way back. Well, usually. Well, here's the thing. The first time that she wasn't there, well, hmm. So in my life, I've always had this problem. If I'm in an unfamiliar place with unfamiliar people, I break down. I can hardly function. So, when I was working at this place, it was pretty fantastic for me because my mother also worked there, and of course, being my mother, I knew her and I could talk to her, and if I were having an issue, I could just talk to her, but I never did. I never really talked to my mother about personal problems or anything like that. So, the first day that she wasn't there and I needed a ride home because I don't have a car, I don't have a license because, well, that's a story for another day. I had to rely on another guy. I'm not going to use his name, but since I'm only talking about one guy, it shouldn't be too difficult to figure out who I'm talking about. Uh, so I had to ask this other guy, which we weren't good friends. I mean, we talked to each other a couple of times, and it was definitely nice to have somebody to talk to occasionally, but we never really talked about much of anything. But so I had to ask this guy for a ride home because my mother wasn't there and I didn't have any way home, and I sure as hell wasn't going to walk. But so yeah, I well, I wasn't the one that asked him. My mother asked him in my stead because she knew I didn't like asking people for things. And so that was all fine and good. So that that time it went over well. I would say it went over well. The second time, the second time, second time was when I had to ask him, and I ran it over time after time after time in my head, thinking, how's he gonna react? What's he gonna say to me? What am I keeping this person from if I ask him? You know, that's really what this is all about, all the doubts, all the fears. But I remember I asked him, and as soon as the question came out of my mouth, my heart just sort of sank. And right before asking him, I just had these rushes of adrenaline that I swore were going to give me a heart attack. But it was fine. It was fine. He gave me a ride home, and it was fine. But then it came around to the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time. Oh my god. The more I had to ask him, the harder it became. Until I finally just couldn't anymore. I couldn't do it. I couldn't ask this guy who I was becoming friends with to give me a ride home. I just couldn't. And I don't have a reason why, but I just couldn't. And it got so bad to the it got to the point where I was asking my brother, who had a job of his own and was working late nights, and well, that's another story for another day. But I would ask my brother to come and pick me up from work, and I would make up the excuses like, well, this other guy is working late, and I'm, I'm, I'm not, to put it simply. And so my brother would come get me, and that would be fine. Then it came to one of those days, like, I, I think it was just a combination of the stress of working and the stress of keeping up with things, and I guess the stress of being around unfamiliar people. Like, I was always on edge. If somebody made a sudden movement or a noise, I would jolt. I would be freaked out. And I'm not normally a person who's scared of things. Like, I love horror movies, and they rarely give me the fright that I normally seek. Now, creepypastas are a whole different thing. I guess it's the difference between reading something and looking at it. I don't know. But, so yeah. It was one of those kinds of days. Like, it was after I had smashed my finger in one of the machines. I had been threatened to get. Well, hold on. I was threatened to be fired if I had another incident with getting a body part caught in a machine again. Which, yay. That's, oh my god, that's. This is going to be a lot of digressions, let me tell you. But I'll finish out this part first and come back to that. So, I was going to have to ask this guy for a ride, and it was on one of the days that I hadn't even planned on doing it. I didn't know it was going to have to happen. It was also one of the days where whichever machine I was working on just didn't want to work. And anybody I talked to just it didn't feel right. I So right about lunchtime, I think. Yeah, it was lunchtime. I was sitting in the break room, and I was just watching the clock and thinking, I'm going to have to go back in there, and I'm eventually going to have to ask this guy to give me a ride home. And just having those thoughts, I began rocking back and forth. I was curling up into a little ball in the chair. It must have been a real sight for people in the room, which I'm glad it was one of the break rooms that nobody ever used. But I was rocking back and forth in my chair, just staring up at the clock and watching as the minutes ticked by. And I was thinking, I can't do it. I can't do it. So I got up. I was getting too finicky to just sit there. So I got up and I started walking around. I was walking in the break room, and then I would walk out of the break room into the little room there, which I know you don't know what I'm talking about, but I would walk out into that room, and I was just walking around, pacing. Yeah, pacing back and forth, and I would peek back into another room where you could see the telephones on the wall, which you could use to call people, of course. And I didn't have my cell phone, so there was this lady. She was talking on the phone to somebody, and I'm like, okay, I can wait. And what I was intending to do was I was going to call my mom, and I was going to just see if she could talk me down, see if I could calm down or anything. But this lady was talking on the phone, and she did it. It had to be 40 minutes. Because I remember as soon as I went over there the first time, she was there, and I had just gone on break. She was there, and so I waited and waited and waited and waited. Every time I'd peek over there, and I felt like a creep doing it. I felt like I was stalking this lady. But, well, there were two telephones, but only one could be used at a time. Hooray. Good use for them. Good use for the second telephone, that is. But, so yeah, that lady never got off the phone. Never did. And by this time, my break was well past over. And the other machine operator was waiting for me to get back so they could take their break. And I do feel bad for making that person wait so long. Oh, that's another thing. But, so yeah. Uh, hmm. So I started to walk back over to my post, I guess you could call it, my machine. But I stopped about halfway because I saw the guy that I was going to have to ask for a ride home, and then I saw everybody else from that room, from the cookie room where I work. Cookie room, not cookie room. The cookie room where I worked. And I turned around. I just started walking back. I thought, oh my god, they're gonna ask me things. They're gonna ask what's wrong, and I'm not gonna be able to provide an answer, and it's just gonna turn into this whole thing. So I walked back. Then I'm like, no, I gotta get back to work. I gotta relieve that person of their whatever. Gotta let that person have their lunch break. So I walked back towards the room, and then I saw everybody standing there talking again, and it it sounds so funny now that I say it, but then it was the worst feeling I had ever felt. So I, so yeah, I turned back and walked away again. And there's something under my desk. So yeah, I did that, and I was just sort of stuck in this. I have to get back to work, but oh my god, I can't kind of feeling. And then the probably the best worst thing that could have happened. One of my bosses, uh, a female boss, thankfully, because they're sensitive, I guess. But I was pacing back and forth, and she saw me, and she asked, "What's wrong? Aren't you supposed to be working?" And I'm like, and she kept asking me, "What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?" And well, I'm like, it's hard to say. I can't tell you. I just don't know. And at the time, like days and days prior, I was researching what I was feeling. I was researching these symptoms, and everything matched up perfectly with clinical depression. And I was thinking, I have clinical depression, but I hadn't been diagnosed. I wasn't about to ask anybody to take me to see a doctor, and I haven't asked anybody to take me to see a doctor still about anxiety, which I still don't know if I should or not. But so so eventually it got to a point where she had asked me so many times, and I said I don't know so many times that I just I sort of burst into tears, and I'm like, I think I had depression, and it's bad. So she took me to her office and was like, "Have you been diagnosed?" And I'm like, "No, no, no." And she was asking what maybe could have triggered this, and well, what I was thinking triggered it was working there, but I wasn't about to tell my boss that. So I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know. That's the problem. And that's what I told everybody else who asked me. I just don't know. And that's why it's bugging me so much. But she just told me, okay, you need to call somebody, and you need to get home. You need to just take some time off. And That would have been great, except I worked through a temp agency. So she didn't have the final say in me taking days off. The agency did, and they didn't like that too much. Uh, so yeah, I lost that job. But so yeah, I called my brother, and the thing that I said was, "Could you come get me? Something happened." That was the only way I could think to put it. Something happened. And as soon as we hung up, I started to think about it. I'm like, oh God, he could be thinking anything happened. He could be thinking I killed somebody, I did something illegal, I got into a fight or something, I broke the law. But no, it's nothing like that. And on the ride, on the ride, during the ride home, he was asking me like, "What's up?" And that's my brother. That's the guy that I don't want to. I don't want seeing that side of me. So I'm like, it's hard to explain. And I was just sitting in the car, rocking back and forth, fighting back tears, just hoping beyond hope that this would all go away. I could wake up in the morning and it would have all been a dream. But no, it was very much real, and it's still very much real, and it's a problem. But yeah, that brings me to what I wanted to talk about, and that is anxiety. I mean, I'm not diagnosed. I should get diagnosed before even trying this. But anxiety is a problem. You may not think it is, but you may hear people having a panic attack or an anxiety attack and think, what, so your breathing's increased and you're scared? So what? I'm scared all the time. I fight monsters for a living or whatever. I fight monsters. How about mobsters? That's more related, right? More relatable. But no. No, 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 no. I used to think that too, but uh, this is the first time that I've kind of realized I have an anxiety problem. Not, I think I have an anxiety problem. I have an anxiety problem, a full blown anxiety problem. And so it's scary. It really is. I mean, every day I just kind of sit and wonder, what could I have done differently in that situation to avoid losing my job and to avoid being a couch potato? I mean, I do things. I have my channel, my YouTube channel, which I'm very glad I have it. I'm glad I have a hobby. But really, the more I think about it, something like YouTube is kind of perfect for somebody like me. Because in a normal job scenario, I can function for a little while. Just a little while, though, before I reach a breaking point, and then I'm done. I can't do it. And the more time goes by, the worse the breakdown's going to be. And I've had this realization, and I just know that it's going to be difficult for me to hold down any kind of job that requires any human interaction whatsoever. So, YouTube, where I can record a video and then edit out the things I don't like and then upload it, is absolutely perfect because I have a real choice as to what people see and what people don't see, and I can pretty much control not so much how people are going to react, but the things that people can say about me, about my videos. Like, if I know I put up crap, then I know I'm going to get crappy comments and dislikes and so on and so forth. And yeah, I don't exactly make the choice to put up crap. Okay, sometimes I do. But it's just nice knowing that I have that little bit of control over the potential comments that I could get on a video. And I guess really the point of what I'm doing right now is just to show people with anxiety that they're most definitely not alone. And while I can still get out of the house, I have such a problem doing it that I will make up any excuse that I can to not get out of the house. I am very, very happy here, surrounded by four walls. Much happier than I would ever be just out with somebody, out with people. Because any kind of human interaction, any part of it, terrifies me to the point where I just can't function. And that leads me to another story